I recently read the Marvel Max series Alias, which was a part of a Marvel imprint from the early 2000s, which allowed for more mature storytelling. And years later, it was adapted into a Netflix series titled Jessica Jones. And with the character of Jessica Jones returning for season 2 of Daredevil Born Again, I thought it'd be fun to review the show and talk about all of the similarities and differences between the comic and the TV show. Now, I did watch this first season when it came out, but it's been so long that this was a pretty fresh watch for me. This is also the first time that I watched the show after having read the comic book. Now, this is going to be a bit different from my last comic comparison where I compared Batman The Long Halloween from the animated movie to the comic. In that video, I went scene by scene of the movie and stopped to talk about any similarity or difference from the comic. But this show is a bit different. Even though I would say that this show is more comic accurate than the Batman The Long Halloween animated movie was, there are still a lot of differences. Also, I'm just going to be talking about the first season of the show as it's the closest to the comic. So, spoiler warning for both Jessica Jones and Alias, the comic book. I should also give a trigger warning as both in the show and the comic, it depicts sexual assault and suicide. With that said, let's talk about the comic for a little bit. It was written by Brian Michael Bendis and illustrated by Michael Gaydos. It's 28 issues and it ran from 2001 to 2004. This series follows a former superhero, Jessica Jones, that is now a private investigator. There are multiple arcs throughout this run that really help show a different perspective of the Marvel Universe, whereas the TV show is one continuous story throughout the entire season. The main connection between the comic and the TV show being the Purple Man. Now, in the comic, the Purple Man is only featured in the last arc of the series, whereas in the TV show, he is the main antagonist throughout the entire first season. Another difference is that in the comic, his skin and hair are literally purple, but in the TV show, he only sometimes wears purple, and is also only referred to as Kilgrave. The characterization of Kilgrave is done really well in this show. If you don't know, Kilgrave has the ability to make people do whatever he wants to them, so I'm sure you can imagine the list of horrible things that a psychopath with no regard for human life will do to people. He's not trying to rule the world or destroy the Avengers. He gets satisfaction from making people do whatever he wants on a day-to-day basis. He doesn't need to rob a bank or a jewelry store when he can just make someone else do it and have their life ruined instead of his. Or he can just enter a high-stakes card game and just tell everyone to fold, like we see in the show, and just walk away with a cool milli. He doesn't need to pay for food or rent when he can just walk in and tell the restaurant management or the residents of the building what he wants. And if he wants to get rid of you, he'll just make you kill yourself. You also cannot break free of his control until you complete the command he has given you.
Stop that! Stop it!
I have to put a bullet in my head. No,
stop.
You put it in my head.
There's a bullet in your head, okay? You did what he said. You followed his command.
He can also put in failsafes in his commands, like if he's not back within a certain time frame, or if he gets killed, his victims will complete a certain action. It's an absolutely OP ability that really comes through well in the show. The history between Jessica and Kilgrave is a bit different between the two adaptations. The crux of the show is that a young woman who went missing and who was a victim of Kilgrave's mind control kills her parents. This was one of Kilgrave's failsafes after Jessica finds her, and this young woman is now facing life in prison. Jessica is determined to bring Kilgrave to justice while also facing her PTSD head on. Jessica, who was previously under Kilgrave's control, killed a woman, and she's trying to deal with that guilt as well. She wants to finally put Kilgrave away for good so he doesn't ruin anyone else's life. This whole first season is a cat and mouse game between Jessica and Kilgrave. Jessica has to operate very carefully because Kilgrave can send innocent people to interfere with Jessica while Kilgrave escapes a situation. He can also have people be his messengers that come out of nowhere, so there's a real sense of paranoia since anyone could be an informant for or a victim of Kilgrave. Kilgrave is trying to win the love of Jessica without controlling her because she's the only person that he's ever cared about. To him, she's interesting, she has powers like him, and she's the only one who's ever really challenged him. Obviously, Jessica has nothing but hatred and disgust towards him, and even though the show makes brief moments to humanize Kilgrave, like having a traumatic childhood as he was experimented on by his parents, and having an outburst with him saying that he has to be very careful with his words and he never knows if someone actually loves him or not because he can never tell. But we know that's horseshit because throughout the season he does nothing but demonstrate his heartlessness for others and his need of control over every little inconvenience.
Children should be seen and not heard. Or better still, not seen and not heard. Get into that closet.
Hey! I said this isn't a library!
Pick up that coffee. Throw it in your face.
Well, now that's out of the way. Put the barrel of the gun into your mouth. Put it in your skull, Patsy.
Oh my
Let's
God!
see how long it takes you to put your head through that post.
I do think that this is a great change that they made for the show, to flesh out Kilgrave a bit more, and even though he's sick and twisted, I find it interesting to see who this character is if he actually is in love with someone, or thinks he's in love with someone, and that person can't be controlled by him. It's unclear exactly how long Jessica was under Kilgrave's control for, but in the comic, she was under his control for 8 months. 8 months! She first meets him while on patrol as the superhero Jewel, as two patrons are trying to kill each other in a restaurant while Kilgrave is just sitting there enjoying his meal. Before she can intervene, he easily gets her attention and is under his control from there. Despite their first meeting, he actually doesn't physically assault her at all throughout the 8 months, but instead he forces her to watch him assault other women who are under his control, making her beg that it was her instead and telling her how much she's in love with him over and over again. Real sick shit. All of this is told in flashbacks as she recounts what she went through to Luke Cage. Now, during all of this, Kilgrave is locked up in a supermax prison made for superpowered individuals called the Raft. The only reason all of this stuff about Kilgrave comes up is because a group of victims who were either under his control or lost loved ones to him hire Jessica to get confessions out of him so he can face justice for those crimes as well. Even though he's serving multiple life sentences, for these victims, their loved ones, it's still this unresolved weight hanging over their heads. Those crimes were never solved, thus no justice has been served for them. There were never any investigations, so they have no idea why Kilgrave murdered them. They're looking for closure. So she goes to see him at the prison to try to get a confession, but he doesn't give her anything. He actually starts breaking the fourth wall, which I wasn't expecting while reading, and Jessica just thinks he's going insane. Later that day, by sheer coincidence, there just so happens to be a prison break at the Raft, and Kilgrave escapes. Appropriately, Jessica starts to panic. The paranoia hits her and she doesn't know who to trust. Of course, Kilgrave goes back to Jessica and puts her under his control again. However, it's revealed that Jean Grey put a psychic trigger in Jessica's mind during her recovery of her original Kilgrave attack that won't allow her to be controlled by Kilgrave, but only if Jessica wills it. She absolutely does and knocks him out with one punch, sending him back to prison. I think. She hits him really hard, I can't tell. There is a moment similar to this in the TV show as well. About halfway through the season, Jessica realizes that Kilgrave can't control her anymore. Kilgrave already knew this and has been trying to find a way to level up his powers to control her again. Throughout the season, Kilgrave hurts, manipulates, and kills so many people who are close to Jessica in order to exploit her weakness of caring for people. Despite her abrasive exterior, Jessica, at her core, wants to help people. The entire season, she wants to bring Kilgrave in alive to serve justice for all of his crimes, but it isn't until the potential cure to his abilities fails and Hope, the young woman who killed her parents, kills herself when Jessica decides that the longer he's alive, the more people he will hurt. And in the final showdown between Jessica and Kilgrave, she fakes being under his control long enough for him to let his guard down and she snaps his neck, Man of Steel style. This is really the only big change that I don't love. On one hand, Kilgrave is a monster and you're rooting for him to die throughout the whole season, but I think a fate worse than death would be if the cure actually worked, he loses his powers and has to spend the rest of his life in prison. We've seen time and time again he gets agitated by the littlest inconvenience and he can't stand not being in control of every situation. I think this would be absolute torture for Kilgrave, while also having Jessica be true to her morals by not killing anyone. Kilgrave's involvement in the comic is only a handful of issues, so the show has to make some necessary changes in order to tell a season-long narrative. And besides the one I just mentioned, I really enjoy pretty much all the other changes they make. I think they help serve the story a lot better. Characters are changed or added to fit this world better, and tension is used a lot more effectively to make emotional moments more impactful, as befits the medium of television. So let's talk about some, shall we? Let's start with the relationship between Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Just like in the comic, they do meet up at Luke's bar and hook up with each other afterwards. The difference is, in the show, this is the first time that they meet each other, whereas in the comic, it seems like they already have a history. The comic is obviously much more fleshed out in terms of superheroes. Luke and Jessica know each other have superpowers, but in the show, they don't reveal that to one another until a few episodes in. Luke also wonders how many others like them are out there in the world, and it appears that just the Avengers are the only publicly known superpowered individuals. Again, whereas in the comic, there are as many superheroes and villains that exist because it's a Marvel comic. The relationship is also a bit different between the two adaptations. In the comic, they're kind of like friends with benefits as they hook up in the first issue, and Jessica is kind of like Luke's side chick for a moment, but then they go off to date other people throughout the comic. Actually, Jessica is dating Scott Lang throughout most of the run. Luke and Jessica have a couple of conversations throughout the run where they're more like friends, in particular when Jessica opens up to Luke about being under Kilgrave's control and he's there to comfort her. Then at the very end of the run, Jessica tells Luke that she's pregnant, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the start of them officially being together in canon. In the show, it's a little bit different. They still hook up quite a bit at first, but then it's revealed that that woman that Jessica killed under Kilgrave's control was actually Luke Cage's wife. Jessica hides this fact from Luke for many episodes, and it seems like Jessica has been keeping tabs on Luke for a very long time before they ever met. She knows a lot about him from afar, and it seems like she has some feelings for him a bit before ever saying a word to each other. She eventually confesses to him that she killed his wife under Kilgrave's control, and Luke is obviously very upset by that.
You let me be inside you.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
He comes back a few episodes later to help her catch Kilgrave, but it turns out that he was under his control. They fight, and Jessica has to shoot him in the head at point blank range to knock him out.
Please stop.
Do what you gotta do.
Those would be the last words they ever say to each other in this season, since he remains unconscious until the last episode after Jessica kills Kilgrave. I don't know if their relationship is ever followed up on in a later season or in the Luke Cage series. I don't know, I haven't seen that series. I'd love to know in the comments below. The character of Trish Walker is new to the show and doesn't appear in the comic at all, although she is a character from the comics known as Hellcat. And I think she even becomes this character in subsequent seasons. She kind of replaces the role of Carol Danvers, aka Miss Marvel, aka Captain Marvel, from the comic. Carol and Jessica are pretty close friends in the comic, and she helps Jessica sometimes get superhero insider information for her cases. Apparently, Carol Danvers was actually supposed to be in the show, but Marvel Studios had plans for her to be in movies soon, so they replaced her with the character of Trish, which I actually think works better because she doesn't have any powers to outshine Jessica with. There's another layer added to the character of Trish Walker, as she was a child star and has a very tempestuous relationship with her mother, who is very hard on Trish, as most parents of child actors are. Trish's mother also adopts Jessica after the car accident where she loses her family as a publicity stunt, so it's safe to say that they don't have a great relationship either.
Taking you in was the worst decision of my life. Thanks, Mom.
Jessica does lose her family in an identical way in the comics by car accident. The car that they crash into is carrying a radioactive isotope, which also gives Jessica her powers. She just isn't adopted by a predatory actor mom. The character of Will Simpson is a cop who attempted to kill Trish Walker while under Kilgrave's control after she spoke out against Kilgrave on her radio show. Jessica ends up saving him and snapping him out of his control, and he wants in on taking down Kilgrave. Simpson and Trish end up forming a romantic relationship until Simpson goes off the deep end after misusing experimental combat medication.
Give me a red.
You had a red this morning.
1 red to get you going, 2 whites to keep you even, 1 blue to bring you down.
This is when I realized that this is actually the character of Frank Simpson, aka Nuke, from the Daredevil Born Again series by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, who is an insane soldier who uses the same red, white, and blue pills to boost and control his adrenaline. His motivation throughout the show is to murder Kilgrave, and he keeps getting in the way of Jessica until she and Trish piece him up in Jessica's apartment. This character does not appear in the Alias comic at all. The character of Malcolm, however, does appear in the comic, although adapted very differently in the TV show. In the comic, he is a high schooler who is obsessed with Jessica, as he is an in-universe superhero nerd and is aware that Jessica has powers and used to be a superhero. He's a pretty minor character who briefly annoys Jessica for a job working for her throughout the comic run. However, he does come through when he's given the opportunity to find someone she can talk to about the disappearance of a teenage superhero. Other than that, he doesn't really do much else. In the show, he is a much different character. He plays Jessica's neighbor who is working for Kilgrave to update him on Jessica's whereabouts to support his drug addiction. Once Jessica finds this out, she helps him on his path to recovery. They end up strengthening their bond as they help each other in their battle to take down Kilgrave. He also starts a support group for other victims of Kilgrave, which helps him rediscover his calling for social work and helping others. I think this is one of the most interesting characters in the show and one of my favorites, as he is struggling with the morality of being a good friend to Jessica and doing the right thing. Being Jessica's friend in this series is not for the weak. Not only is she connected to Kilgrave, who will use and hurt people around her, but Jessica is a bad friend because she pushes them away so they don't become a victim of Kilgrave. There's a great turning point for him in his story when, after he has been sober for a while and is actively helping Jessica and the people in the Kilgrave support group, it is revealed to his neighbor, Robin, that he dumped the body of her twin brother, Ruben, and has been lying to her about knowing his whereabouts. Later, after Malcolm, Robin, and a couple members of the support group attempt to hang themselves while under control of Kilgrave, Robin tells Malcolm that it's every man for themselves out there, and community doesn't work. Malcolm is ready to leave and go back to his family after telling Jessica that she's a bad friend, but rushes to intervene in a conflict between a spiraling Robin and an innocent postal worker. This is when he realizes that helping people is his true calling and doubles down on being a good friend to Jessica. I hope he's in future seasons. At time of recording, I've only seen the first season, so I hope he continues to grow as a character. Now, to kind of round things out, I just want to talk about some little things that I saw and some thoughts that I had while watching this series. The title sequence uses art from David Mack, who was the original cover artist for the Alias comic, which I think is really cool. Narration is used quite a bit in this series, which just adds this noir element to the show. Narration is a staple in the comics medium, and I feel like it needs to be used more in superhero movies and TV shows. One thing that I notice is that Jessica Jones uses her powers a lot more in the TV show. Jessica in the comic more so relies on her skills as a PI to solve the cases. If she cheats in any way, it's more so to access information from a SHIELD agent or from an Avenger like Carol Danvers to access certain databases that aren't on the internet. I can't recall a single fight scene within the comic. I don't think she gets in any fights at all. The fight scenes in the show are pretty minimal, but I feel like it's kind of a mandate if you're making a superhero show, especially back in like 2016, that you need a couple fight scenes, which I'm definitely okay with. Another reason why I think I like this show so much is that it feels like a real TV show. This first season has an estimated budget of $40 million, which is insane to think about, considering that the MCU is pumping out these 6-episode TV shows that are like $200+ million. And this feels way more like a real TV show. I think a big part of that has to do with the cinematography. They really have to plan out a lot of their shots, and it's really artistic at a lot of points in this series. And I kind of ranted about this in my last video about the state of MCU TV shows, but there are tropes in the show that just do not appear in MCU TV shows today. There's sex scenes, there's heavy drinking, there's some pretty brutal and graphic violence, and there are heavy themes like rape and sexual assault. Unfortunately, you will just never see any of that stuff in a current MCU project. Towards the beginning of the first episode, Jessica Jones throws a client through the window of her apartment door, which is something that's ripped directly out of the comic.
And then there's the matter of your bill.
There's also a line that Luke says about finding new work that's also ripped right from the comic.
Pops always said, you won't feel good going to work, just find new work.
Jessica doesn't have a professional relationship with any law firm. She's well known enough to get work consistently on her own. If anything, in the comic, she does do a side job of being a bodyguard for Matt Murdock, and he does provide some legal counsel for her in the first few issues, but there's really no like consistent professional relationship that she has with any law firm or any other business. Later throughout the season, it's revealed that Kilgrave's powers are actually a virus that he releases, which is why they're trying to work on a cure to subdue his abilities. But in the comic, it's not a virus, it's technically pheromones that he releases through his skin that produce psychoactive chemicals, which make you susceptible to his mind control. Little nerd nitpick there, but I digress. And the last thought I had is that there's a cheeky little nod to Jewel, which was Jessica Jones's superhero alias before she retired in the comic book.
Well, ultimately, it's gonna be a lightweight, highly durable fabric, waterproof, flame resistant, and it will hide your identity.
No.
Fine. Be the naked superhero. That can be your alias.
It was better than the name you came up with.
Jewel is a great superhero name.
Jewel is a stripper's name, a really slutty stripper. And if I wear that thing, you're gonna have to call me Camel Toe.
Okay.
Which I think is a little fun. Now, with that said, I'm sure I missed a detail or two, and if I did, please let me know in the comments below. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like. It would really help me and my channel out a lot. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. I'm almost at 3,000 subs, so I would really appreciate it if you could get me to that milestone. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.